discussed the purpose of consecutive without notes. We've talked about suitable materials to practice consecutive without notes. And now I'd like to address how to go about doing consecutive without notes. What are the processes that you go through when you listen to a speech and then you do a consecutive without taking any notes? Well, the first thing that you're doing, obviously, is listening to the speaker. And the speaker is taking you on a little trip from A to B, B being a destination of their choice. You are following the speaker along the same path in the same direction, and the speaker may stop every so often to show you some interesting bits of scenery. For example, those might be facts and figures that they would like you to retain. Now, your task, as I was saying, is to follow the speaker, not necessarily exactly in their footsteps, but close behind, along the same path and in the same direction. Why? Because later, your role is going to be to act as a tour guide. You are going to be taking your audience along that same path to try to reach destination B. And if you take a wrong turning along that path, then your audience is going to get lost. You may find that there are stumbling blocks along the way. You might find that there are rocks in the path that will trip you up. Those might be things like unknown words, or facts that you're unfamiliar with, or cultural references that you don't recognize or that you find difficult to pronounce. But it's important to remember that you can go around those rocks. You don't have to let them make you trip up or make you stumble. As long as you can see them coming, usually there's a way around them. You must also remember that your speaker has a personality. If you don't reflect that personality when it's your turn to interpret, you might end up in the same place as the speaker, you might end up in point B, but you will leave your group, your audience, with a very different feeling from the one that the speaker evoked when you listened to him or her. So that's your role. You're the tour guide. How can you ensure that you are going to do a good job? Well, the first thing you need to do is consider the needs of your audience. Let's say you're interpreting for a police officer, for example. You might draw very different conclusions about what your client needs than if you were interpreting for somebody else. For example, a police officer might want you to be extremely faithful with the information that you're interpreting. They might want you to give every single detail and fact, and also be very faithful in how you reflect the speaker's body language or their intonation. So you might not be able to edit the content or to summarize in the same way as perhaps you would have been able to do in a different interpreting situation. Or let's say now that you're interpreting for a group of laymen, you may decide to adjust the way that you use your mother tongue. You may decide to express yourself in simpler terms, in simpler language, whereas if you had been addressing an audience of experts in a particular field who were completely familiar with technical jargon, you would have used your mother tongue very differently. So you need to be able to adapt to the interpreting situation in which you find yourself, but your guiding principle must always be to give your audience the information that they need. That was point one then, considering the needs of your audience. Point two is what you need to do as an interpreter to achieve a successful consecutive without notes, and that is listen and analyze. I've said it before, but I'm saying it again because it's so important. Listen and analyze, identify the structure that underlies what your speaker is saying. That structure represents the path that they are taking to get from point A to point B, and that will guide you when you are interpreting. And then, of course, you have to actually deliver your consecutive, and that has been covered in some detail in the section on public speaking. Those are the skills that you will need to draw on to deliver your consecutive. Above all, don't panic. It's not an exam. It's a chance, it's an opportunity for you to help your audience understand what the speaker is trying to say.